Hey guys, good to see you again. Thanks for joining me for another edition of Lifeline, Live Your Future Every Day. All right, you ready to go?
Let's do it.
So we're on Think a Million, and we're picking this back up with the 9 ways that millionaires think. So the first one is think powered by a big why. So let's tackle 3 right now. We're going to think powered by a big why, think big goals and big models, and think possibilities. So who wants to dive in on think powered by a big why? Go.
Well, I can read the biggest print in the book, which says a big why brings big focus and big energy. And I don't think you choose a different font unless that's the tie-in on that, which I think ties all the way back to the title, because I had never actually thought about that much money. And so for me, that's what that led to. But I guess I'm curious with you guys when you're writing this, because I'm sure you spoke to people that had been successful that maybe didn't have this giant why that was driving some of it, yet they're still successful.
Well, there's a Nietzsche quote out there that he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. And it's this idea that, like, striving for big success, if you we even said it in the book, if it's about the money, right, it's not going to do it. It's about being the best you can be. And Gary read that in our last episode. Because ultimately, the why is what gets you out of bed on a rainy day. When you don't feel like doing what you need to do, when you need to do it, the why is that driver. And I think the interview in the book, I believe it was Natalie Fitzgerald that echoed that. She was a single mom with 2 girls, and she woke up and said, I have to provide. Right. And that drove her to start a brand new career and build an amazing career in real estate. And so tapping into your big why is like the ultimate turbocharger to anything you can do, in my opinion.
Yeah. And this gets back to being, go ahead, Monica, please.
Well, I was just going to say, and don't we all agree, because I find this out in coaching, that people will say all the time, what's my big why? What's my big why? And we just keep it simple. It can be helping people with the American dream of buying and selling real estate. It can be so simple as to provide the best, most amazing childhood, or growing my kids up. It's not that complicated. Your why is who you are and why you're on this earth.
Yeah. So what you said is golden. So here's the trick. It goes back to what we said in the episode right before this. And that is, are you thinking big, or are you thinking specifically big? So what you've discovered when you really unpack this idea of a big why, what you discover is everyone's living theirs. There isn't anyone. I go into a room and I start working with people, and we talk about big why, and they go, well, what should mine be? And I go, look, you got to understand, you're already living it. You just don't, you have not pulled it out and articulated it. It's kind of like the conversation that, I had with John, my son, when he was real little, and he goes, we were saying a prayer one night. And it's real little, right? Footy pajamas, the whole thing, right? I think Batman was the theme that night. And he says, dear God, come into my life. And I stopped him. And I said, hey, buddy, I want to talk to you for a second. I said, let me ask you a question. And he was old enough to understand this. I said, do you think that God is in the trees? And he went, yeah. I said, do you think God is in the universe? And he said, yeah. I said, do you think God is right? And I went through this series. Do you think God is in the dog, right? Real simple for him. He says, yeah. I said, so you realize God's already in you. The question is, can you let him out? Can you acknowledge him? He's already, if you understand the omnipresent, then it's omnipresent. I mean, that's the concept of that idea, right? So my point is that your big why is already there. Because you are not living it. That's unfathomable concept, you guys. No. You're living it. You are living your why. Now, did you think about it? Did you give it any? And are you letting it power you, or are you letting it subconsciously? Right? Are you right? Because what you were saying, Monica, is if you can articulate it, if you can actually get in touch with what really makes you happy, your big why. Right? What you really want your life to be about, and you can articulate it, then every day you can aim what you do and make towards it more purposefully, right? And you can make sure that your actions are always congruent with that thinking.
Yeah.
That's the point, by the way. So understand that people that achieve real estate sales at a high level, they are being powered by a big why. I didn't say that they were acknowledging it. That's another conversation, because I would think but when you interview them, you uncover it. Now, then you get into a conversation with them about, what are you doing to make sure that you're actually doing that every day? It's really fascinating, because in that moment, you find most lives are not examined lives. So when we talk about this idea of think powered by a big why, notice we said powered by it, meaning that it's now front and center. You, like Monica said, you've identified it, you stuck it up there. And now you're everything you're doing about your real estate business is congruent with that theme. And those, by the way, are the happiest realtors. When we interview,
go ahead, finish your thought.
When we do our interviews, I think you three will agree with me that when we do our interviews and someone understands and can articulate their big why, there's a glow about them. There's a happiness about them. There's a contentment about them. And it's not about the money.
No.
Never.
I had two stories from our One Thing tour. One is a lady in California that every year it just kind of hit 12 million and just had a ceiling. And she won a consultation and was thinking about essentially retiring and donating all of her time to an animal shelter.
Wow.
And we just talked about it. And I just said, well, if you're really motivated by the animal shelter, like what would happen if you just took all of your production above 12 million and started funding it? And I checked in with her the next year because I was just a town away. She showed up and she had bumped it up to over 20 million in the preceding 11 months. And
because she had a reason to make that reason.
She's like, I'm not just selling houses for me. Clearly, she had what she needed at around 12 million. But when she thought about what she wanted to happen in the world, she found reasons to do a lot more. That's just a really specific example of what this can look like.
Okay, let's jump to the second one. So think big goals and big models. So it kind of jumps right now. You can see there's a progression in the way that this is built, right? I think powered by a big why. And now that I know what that is, that I've pulled it out of me and set it in front of me to be a guiding light for my decisions and my actions, I'm going to need a big model, right? I'm going to actually need, and a big model has to be powered by a big goal, because if you don't have a big goal, then you'll choose a comparable model. So if I have a low goal, then I have a low model. And I use the example again of eating. But if my low goal is just to eat enough to get through the day, my model for eating is irrelevant.
This kind of reminds me of your up yours mantra, which was any problem that you have, up yours, up the goal, and most of the problems you'll be forced to solve them.
Well, people always say on board. That's in a response. We hear this a lot, where a guy's making $1 million, or he's making $500,000, or a lady is making, whatever, right, $2 million, whatever. And it's shocking. It's shocking. But you will hear the statement, I'm bored. And then I always came back and said, well, up yours.
Gary, one of the most,
by the way, I understand you're bored at $1 million. Why don't you try for 2? And let's see how exciting that gets real fast. Because by the way, the actions you're taking and the relationship you have is what got you to $1 million, but they won't get you to 2 unless you grease the wheels and set it up in order to have no limits. You're actually building boxes, and most people live in boxes, right? They do. Their relationships are in a box. Their health is in a box. Their hobbies and their skills around their hobbies are in a box. They're just a bunch of boxes.
Of their own design.
What's that?
Of their own design.
Of our own design, unwittingly.
Yes.
Of our own design. So you have to have a big goal. You have to, because.
So Gary, one of the things that you did that was the most profound moment, really, and kind of in my real estate career, there's like 4 or 5 kind of profound moments. It's in a room about 12 years ago. And you said, okay, everyone, write down what you're going to sell this year. So I wrote down 200. You said, cross it out, double it, cross it out, double it, cross it out, double it. And then you looked at me and you said, well, what would it take for you to do? I think I was at 1,600 transactions. And I went, I got the systems, I got the model. I just need the right people. And so that was the big thinking, like, why am I thinking about 200? I can easily do, 800, 1,000 with I've got the models, I've got the systems, I'm there.
I would kiss you through the Zoom, dear, because what you said is absolutely it in a nutshell. And that is what you'd come to discover is that in order to fulfill your maximum potential, you need to have a goal that has no ceiling and a model that matches it and relationships that match that.
Yep. I remember the other aha in that is you raise the goal. We talked about this with the pyramid shape. The bigger the goal, the narrower the choices. So one of the weird gifts you get when you set a really big goal is there are fewer choices. So you get more clarity about what it is you need. And it's like so counterintuitive. You would think average goals would be the most obvious ways, but the truth is there's just a lot of ways you could do it.
Yeah. By the way, let's end this conversation. Just saying this. When we interview top agents who are achieving really massive success, gang, it's because they had a big goal and they created a model that had no limits. And then all they did was continue to find great relationships that would find their role in the model. That's what they
creating models that are duplicatable and scalable from day one.
Scalable. Yeah. Scalable is the big idea there, right? Are your actions scalable?
I remember some of us were struggling and you sat us down, and I don't remember exactly how you said it, but you said, you guys need to take responsibility for your life. And as soon as you do, you're going to be powerful again. I remember we all kind of looked at each other. I don't know that any of us had any idea what you were talking about. We were in our 20s, but I think that's probably true today as it was then for almost everyone.
100%. So the last one is think possibilities. What does that mean?
This idea in the book, you kind of explore this idea that for some people, nothing is possible. For others, there's some stuff that's possible. And then there's this group that believe that anything is possible. And what I took away is you were kind of saying any bucket of those three that you're in, it's because you've put yourself there. And I think you were kind of inviting the reader to join the bucket that you live in. Is that?
No,
yeah, 100%.
On page 83, there's a line I underlined, and I'm piggybacking on this theme of think big specifically, right? And you change the question from, is this possible, to, it's the second to last paragraph. If I want it, what must happen for me to get it? And you just change it. So what would have to happen for me to do 1,000 transactions, right? Instead of saying, is that even possible? We're going back to that specific theme. And again, that for some reason, some mental trick, it starts to open up doors for you.
Yeah. I ask an agent a question. I say, look, what are you doing? And the agent says, well, I'm doing X, pick a number. Right. And I go, so what's your goal? What do you think is possible? Well, I think I could do, 4 times that. And then I come back and I go, as an example, and I go, okay, well, let me ask you a question. And that is, do you have the leads to do that? If they say no, then I go, well, we can stop here. You have a lead gen problem, because you're never going to do it if you don't have the leads. Right. So you have a lead gen problem. So you need to up your lead gen to generate more leads. Many, by the way, will come back and say, actually, I do have the leads to do 4 times what I'm currently doing. Okay. Well, then you have a conversion problem. You only have one of the two. It's either you don't have the leads or you're not converting the leads. It's either one or the other. So you have a conversion problem. And that's it. There are no other problems.
I've watched you diagnose so many businesses that way. Are you making the amount of money you want? No, not really. Great. Do you have enough leads? Okay, great. Tell me about how you convert them. And then you just live in one of those 2 categories. And then you go real detailed and you say, tell me exactly what your follow-up system is. Tell me exactly what you're sending. How many times do you call? And you just keep asking questions until you find the gap.
Yeah. And sometimes I'd be coaching an agent, and this is going back to the 90s when I did a lot of that. And I would ask an agent, and they wouldn't know the answer. And I'd say, well, there's an easy way to find out. They go, how's that? You take all the lead gen calls yourself and see what conversion looks like. So we'd get on the call a week later, and they would go, I got a conversion problem. And I would go, what did you discover? And they said, well, my team is converting at a 7% or whatever it was, but I just converted 40%. And I went, okay. So you got a conversion problem. Now, is it people or training?
And we're watching a buddy of ours do the opposite of that, where he's working with a group who thinks they have the greatest leads in the world. And he said, well, send them all to me because I'm Jedi. And he's not going back and saying, you guys actually have a lead gen problem. You're not creating leads. You're creating just phone numbers. And there's a difference.
Yeah. What an aha about that, right?
Yeah.
Love it.
All right.
Yeah. On page 83 at the very bottom, act as though it were impossible to fail. And so the top producers act that way just naturally because they know the road to success is paved with failures and with mistakes. And I always say to an agent, the more mistakes you make, the better you're going to be. Go out there, make some. And
never fear.
Attitude.
Right. Yeah. Don't fear
possibilities.
That's right. Yep. All right. We're out of here. Thanks, guys.